Welcome to the Pretty Deadly Podcast. My name is Susie Kahlich. I'm the founder of Pretty Deadly Self-Defense, a self-defense program I developed based on my experience as a violent crime survivor and my 25 years training in the Japanese art of ninjutsu. Welcome back to the Pretty Deadly Podcast, House Cleaning Edition. This week we are in the living room. I don't know about you guys, but usually by the end of the week, my living room is kind of a mess. You know, a whole week of just dumping stuff on the sofa, leaving things where they are. Your week gets busy, you don't put things away. So the first thing that I usually do is just put everything away. If you have kids, double goes for you, right? So again, putting stuff away is a really great time for us to practice throwing. And I don't mean that you should be throwing stuff across the room and breaking other stuff. But let's start if you have kids. If you have kids or pets is another good example, and you tend to keep all their toys in a basket, this is a great time, again, to practice throwing. Oftentimes as women, we are taught to either throw underhand or overhand. You may also play sports, and you may play a sport where there's throwing involved, like softball, baseball, football, rugby. Well, actually, rugby is always underhanded, but anything that can be an overhand throw. So you may be really good at it, or you may not know how to throw at all. Either one of these things is fine. But when we're talking about self-defense, throwing things and an overhead throw is not necessarily going to help us out in that moment. Overhand throws are really great for throwing things to a distance, right? And underhand throws are really great for tossing things to someone. But what we want to practice is a side hand throw. So if you've ever watched a baseball game or seen clips, you might see a pitcher sometimes will kind of, as they're practicing with the ball, they'll pitch from the side into the mitt. That side hand throw, which is the same movement you do if you've ever skipped stones on a lake or in the ocean, that side hand throw is going to throw harder than an overhand or an underhand throw. And again, if you play sports and you've got a really powerful overhand, then use your overhand. But if you don't do something that normally involves throwing, then try this side throw. So let's think about picking up cat toys, dog toys, kid toys that normally belong in some kind of a storage basket or maybe even a room. Again, you might not want to actually pitch stuff into your kid's room, but also if they're teenagers, you might. We can also practice this with clothes, but I recommend with small items like pet toys is a great way to start. We want to hold the item in our hand with our palm up. Right? Our elbow is going to be really close to our body, and we're really just going to move our arm back and forth and let the wrist be flexible. So the wrist flexes back and flexes forward. Don't let go yet. Just flex back and flex forward. That's not easy to say. When you feel comfortable with this movement, you can move your elbow a little bit away from your body and toss whatever it is that you've got in your hand into a basket or a bucket or a bin, wherever it belongs. Usually we have a dominant right hand or a dominant left hand, and it's very hard for us to be ambidextrous, but it's good to practice throwing with both hands, right? I don't mean at the same time, but with practicing right hand as well as left hand, because you never know what hand is going to be available. So as you're putting more softer toy items away, as you're cleaning up your living room, practice pitching them from the side like you're skipping a stone. It really doesn't matter if you actually get it into the basket, bucket, or bin, but we're simply working on the movement and seeing if we can gain some control, because that movement is really powerful. How you would use this in a self-defense situation is if you're attacked on the street, or if you have someone come into your home, you can grab objects and throw them at people. It's always great to throw stuff in people's face because that distracts them and it makes it hard to see, but sometimes we want to throw hard enough where they're going to be distracted by the impact of the item on their body as opposed to fending stuff off from their face. Especially if you happen to have terrible aim, like I do, throwing someone at someone's face, if there's any kind of distance, doesn't mean it's always going to get there. But a body is a bigger target that's a little easier for me to get to. When we've got our soft items put away, away, we might want to put away our harder items like books, right? Or plates. Plates are really great self-defense weapons, by the way. And we talked about putting plates away in the kitchen episodes, but now we're going to talk about using plates like Frisbees. So that's kind of the opposite of the throw you just learned. Obviously, don't really throw your plate like a Frisbee across your living room because you're going to have a bigger mess to clean up. But you can use plates like a Frisbee if you had a home invasion and you needed to defend yourself. Learning how to throw a Frisbee is a really great way to learn that flexibility, learn how your entire body is engaged in that movement, and how that can be really, really powerful because you can throw a Frisbee really hard at somebody. And obviously, the same goes for a plate or any kind of disc. So the same thing goes for albums. Clearly, if they're really valuable, you might not want to throw them at people, but they can make great self-defense weapons. And remember, that goes as well for album covers. It doesn't have to be round or disc shaped to throw it like that. You can also throw something that's flat, but square or triangular, whatever it is. Again, this is also like Shuriken, throwing stars. Just a useful tool to have if you need to get somebody out of your face or to make space so you can get away. Once we've thrown all the things that can be thrown back into the places where they belong, if you can actually throw a record album into its correct pile, congratulations. You should probably have some kind of a sideshow. If not, obviously we want to put them away correctly, but let's move on to larger things like books. If you have books to put away, there's a lot of different ways we can use books as self-defense weapons. We don't necessarily want to use the motion of putting a book away because it's very similar to putting plates away, and we've already been through that, how that can be a really great strike. But we do want to look at books and learn how we can use the different parts of books as self-defense weapons. So the flat of a book, the cover or the back cover, obviously can be taken by both hands and whack somebody up the side of the head with that. We can also use the edge of the book, right? Whether that's the spine or the top edge of the pages or the bottom edge, and thrust it into someone's throat or someone's face. Generally aiming towards the eyes, but it's okay if your aim isn't perfect. That's a really great way to get somebody to move away from you. You can use just the corner of the book, the spine, especially if it's a hardcover, but it works for softcover books too, and use that as a tool almost like a knife because it is a sharp cover. So you can kind of thrust it at someone and making contact will cause them pain. Your books are put away, your soft items are put away, your harder items are put away. Maybe you've got some magazines. You can use those exactly in the same way that you use books. You want to make sure that there's tension because obviously they're all soft cover. So hold both sides of the magazine, both the spine as well as the loose pages, if you're going to use that as a weapon in the same way. Once we've got all of our surfaces clear, the next thing I do is wipe down surfaces or dust. So whether you use a dusting rag or you like to use a feather duster or some kind of duster with a handle, you're going to do the same kind of motion, which is usually moving your arms back and forth, wiping down coffee tables, bookshelves, whatever it is. But we tend to move in a left-right horizontal direction when we're doing this movement. Again, when we're actually wiping stuff down, I encourage you to pay very close attention to what your body is doing. We tend to think that it's just our arm doing the work, but our entire body is engaged. We're so used to doing this kind of stuff, walking through the living room and just wiping stuff down, that we're not paying attention to how we're actually kind of moving as one unit. And that's very powerful. So this movement of your hand moving away from you is also a really great strike. In Japanese martial arts, it's called a Shuto. I'm sure there's a better way to pronounce that than what I just did, but that's how it's spelled, is Shuto. Shuto. When we strike with a Shuto, we're striking with not the heel of our hand and not the palm of our hand, but the edge of our hand just below the little finger. We keep our fingers together so that they have a stronger surface and you've got more tension and what's kind of like a blade essentially, and you can simply strike across. We like to use this movement in ninjutsu on somebody's neck. So usually you don't whack someone in the neck like you're trying to chop off the head, but you're kind of slicing across their neck, almost like you're slicing a piece of sushi. Again, we want to use this going away from us, not going towards us, because then you're just going to hit yourself. But this movement, when you do it, it's never just with your arm. Your entire body is engaged, And if you're stretching to reach your extra large coffee table or bookshelf or whatever it is, notice that stretch, because once again, you're going to be using the same arm and the same leg to cover that distance. It's a more efficient way for the body to get that distance than using the opposite leg. Pay attention to how you're moving as one complete unit. Your movement is originating in your center. You are extending your arm. Your center at some point stops moving to keep you in upright balance, but the arm continues to move, right, as you're wiping things down. This is really powerful movement. You already do it. And you're doing something really similar with a feather duster. So here we tend to use our wrists more than our entire arm. I encourage you to use the whole arm just to make sure that you also get to feel that same movement. But if you do like to just use the wrist and kind of lightly dust on top of things, pay attention again to this wrist movement. How is this working with the rest of your body? Because again, these are attached to very powerful self-defense moves. Now that we have everything done and dusted, we're going to move on to windows. I personally don't like to clean windows, but we need our windows clean, right? So again, we're going to go back to the wax on, wax off principle. And this one is much more similar to what Ralph Macchio was learning in Karate Kid from Mr. Miyagi. So this movement of the circular motion of washing your windows is moving away from your body as a block. So if someone is coming towards me with a right punch, I can block away as though I'm wiping a window in a clockwise direction. The same thing, if someone's coming towards me with a hook, I can also step back with my opposite foot so that I get my head out of the way and wipe towards myself in a counterclockwise motion and guide that person's movement away from me. So again, let's imagine that I'm using my right arm to wipe away, to block a punch, or I'm using my right arm to wipe towards myself. And if I'm doing that, then I want to step back with my left foot and turn as I do so to make sure that I am getting my head out of the way of that punch. Wax on, wax off. And if you feel like taking a break, watch The Karate Kid and see what I'm talking about. Maybe just fast forward to those parts. Now that our windows are nice and clean, we are going to move on to vacuuming. If, of course, you have a robot vacuum, then this doesn't apply. But if you have a stand-up vacuum or even a smaller hose vacuum, we tend to move the vacuum back and forth across the floor, across the rug. We do the same thing with a Swiffer. This movement of going forward and going back is what I want to focus on, and I'm really going to focus on this going forward movement. Again, I want you to pay attention to what's happening in your body when you do this with whatever arm you're using to vacuum. And again, I'm going to default to the right because I'm right-handed. I want you to take a step forward with the leg on the same side. So if you're using your right arm to push the vacuum forward, use your right leg to step forward with it. And use your right leg to step back as you pull the vacuum back. Just get used to this motion and syncing these two movements together a few times, and then try it on the left as well. We're always going to be more awkward on our less dominant side. That's totally okay. Just try it so you get a feel for it. Once you feel more connected to this movement, what I want you to focus on is continuing this movement forward, letting your arm extend to its full extension while you stay upright. So notice how your body automatically adapts to that, right? When we're vacuuming something, we might be vacuuming a wide area, but we usually don't extend beyond our own balance, right? And we try not to bend over at the waist because we're going to fall over or it's going to be really hard to pull that vacuum back. We tend to stay upright. So take a step forward with the same leg as you stay upright. Let your arm extend all the way to its full extension as you vacuum, and then bring it back all at the same time as you step back with the same leg. This is a really great way to practice an escape from a two-hand grab. And we call this in Pretty Deadly punch the ground because it's very superhero looking. If someone's standing in front of you and they grab one of your wrists or hands, or they grab your wrist or hand with both, right? Or they grab both of your hands to hold you in place. What we can do is take a step forward and thrust towards the ground, the ground at the same exact time. If you can bend all the way and touch the ground, that's fantastic. You're going to take that person's balance completely. If you can't because you don't have the range of motion or you don't have the space to do it, that's fine. It's that connection between the step forward and the forward thrust of your arms. You can do it with one arm, you can do it with two arms. They're both really, really effective escapes and great for getting those corners. Once we have all our vacuuming done, I usually like to go around and just make everything look fresh by fluffing up all the cushions and especially whatever throw pillows I have around. I don't know if this is still the case in interior design, but I know when I was training in martial arts in the early 2000s, there was a trend for everyone to have their pillows karate chopped in the middle. So they would fluff up their throw pillow and then karate chop it in the middle so you'd get this nice crease. I have no idea why this happened, why it was a trend, why everyone thought it was a great idea, but it was a great way to practice karate chops. So go ahead, fluff up those pillows and then karate chop right in the middle. Get yourself a nice crease and a magazine-looking throw pillow, I guess, or maybe it's outdated now. It doesn't matter. Practice those karate chops. Next week, we're going to move on to the bedroom. You can access all Pretty Deadly episodes on Spotify, iTunes, Audible, and everywhere you get your favorite pods. Our theme music is the track Icarus Wish by the Berlin band Dead Centuries, used with permission of the artists. To learn more about Pretty Deadly Self-Defense, who we are, what we do, and how to find Pretty Deadly near you, visit our website at prettydeadly.com.